Robbie Simpson and Hannah Gallagher are today's speakers, both representing LAPS today, which stands for Life After Professional Sport. It was Robbie founded this during his professional career as a footballer, really looking to bridge the gap between professional athletes and the business world. And Hannah, as a professional rugby player, having retired, is now the member support manager at LAPS. Robbie's made over 400 appearances as a professional footballer. Hannah has represented Saracens and also England, so they've really excelled in what they've done. So I'll invite them both up onto the stage. So you should see some notifications popping up, firstly with Robbie and secondly to Hannah. Robbie, hi mate, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Brad. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Hi, Hannah, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good, thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for joining us. And I do want to talk a lot about the work that you're doing with LAPS, which is brilliant, something that we're really behind here. But I do also want to focus on your careers as professional athletes. It's not every day you get to speak to a former professional footballer and a rugby player. So, firstly, Robbie, you spent over 400 appearances as a footballer. What's a standout moment in your career?
I've got two really. One, my first full debut for Coventry was away at Old Trafford against Manchester United in a cup match. All my family are Man United fans, so they all came up to Old Trafford and we ended up beating them 2-0. So I shoved it right in their faces. And, the other one would be probably the best goal of my career, which was at Anfield against Liverpool in the FA Cup. Put us 1-0 up at the Cop end. We ended up losing 5-1, but I don't like to speak about the rest of the game.
They're two very good moments, two good places to play. And the same question to you, Hannah. What's a highlight for you?
I would say my second cap, because that was against New Zealand, which are the best team in the world. And I didn't expect to play against them for my second cap, so I was still only 19. And yeah, within, I think, 5 minutes, I'd scored my first try against them. So that was amazing. And then later on in the game, I also got my first yellow card because I was a back row. So it seems to be what we're good at. So yeah, for us, that was the season we won all 3 games or tests against New Zealand. So that was a big thing because we hadn't done that for probably 10 or so years. So yeah, that was a big moment in my career.
As I say, I'd like to focus a little bit more about the latter ends of your career and the work that you're doing now. And you both finished your professional careers in slightly different circumstances. So I'll touch on that. So Robbie, firstly, you were lucky in the sense that you were able to play to your mid-30s professionally. But you also had that forward-thinking mindset of setting up LAPS. But what's the mindset of a player that's coming towards the end of his career?
Worry, really. They want to play forever. Most sports people want to play forever, and they don't quite realise that they can't until the very, very end. That's the latter years. So it is worry. Initially, I think it's what the hell am I going to do? They'd probably get pushed into coaching roles and to stay in the sport. That's what they probably get pushed to do. But and lots of people do want to stay within the sport that they do. But there's plenty of people that don't. They just want a complete break. They want, in football terms, they want their Saturdays back. They want their Christmases back for their families. So there's lots of cases where they don't want to stay in the sport and they want to try and pursue something new. And in terms of LAPS, we try and give them the avenue to pursue those careers.
Yeah, great. We'll touch on LAPS very shortly, Robbie. But back to you, Hannah. You unfortunately had to end your career through an injury, which is never how anyone wants to end their career. So just put us in your mindset at that point in time.
So I always get this confused. I was 23 or 24, so I was very young. And I still remember in my head, like Robbie said, I was planning on playing till I was 35. I always think that, like, not too crippled, still be able to get around the park. And I remember doing, so I ruptured my ACL and it was just before we played Scotland in the Six Nations. So I was down to start. I had really good form and we were just playing a match in camp against each other, and I just got my foot stuck and twisted, and my knee just popped. And I just remember I cried, and I mean it hurt, but I just remember crying because I knew it was a big injury, and I knew that would mean I'd be out for the Six Nations, and our World Cup was the year after, and all that's all that came to me. It wasn't like, oh no, this hurts. It was this is a big injury. This could be like a real issue for me. And then I rehabbed really well. It was about 8 months in, and I was the fittest I've ever been. I was moving really well, looking to get back for the Autumn Internationals. And then I was just with my trainer, and I stepped off my right leg and my knee went again. And then it was just speaking to the physios and the surgeons, and they were like, we'll fix it, but it will take at least 2 years. And then in those 2 years, it was, your knee won't take this. And if that doesn't go, your left knee will go. So you should stop. So I had a bit of time to get used to it, but it took a lot of time. And yeah, it was very, very difficult. And that's why obviously laps has been a big help for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And the physical effects let you down there, but let's talk about the mental effects there, because that's something that not a lot, and it's quite apt at the moment as it's Health Awareness Week. So psychologically and mentally, take us into your mind at that point in time. What are you thinking?
Do you know what? The first time it was hard, but I was just so focused that so many people get back from ACLs. Like it's not uncommon to do it. So I was just very focused to get back. But I was obviously standard competitive young athlete. I want to get back as quick as possibly can, and just didn't really kind of understand that the longer you kind of let these ACLs rest, the more chance you've got of having a longer career. So I rushed back, and when my knee went again, no one believed me. I remember being like, it's gone. Like, and everyone's like, you're being dramatic. And then, when I found out, that was when I think I started to come to terms with, I've got to go through 2 years of this now. So I'm definitely missing a World Cup. I even discussed playing without an ACL, but then it was, if you do that, you're really going to mess up your knee. So I went against that. I was very tempted. I was very close to playing without it. But with that, I then went into overdrive I can't do much about my knee, so I'm going to look at my career and use that. But I suffered massively. I saw a sports psychiatrist for about a year just to try and get over, should I go back to rugby? Shouldn't I? What should I do? Is it going to go again? And it was really hard, and it's taken years to kind of get over that. But like I said, laps and like my job and things like that really helped kind of move me on, because it's changing your identity from being a rugby player to something else. And I wasn't ready to make that change. So I was pushed into something. So it's taken me a few years to find that new identity. And but finally, I'm 28 now, so it's been 4 years, but
Good stuff. And Robbie, as I said earlier, you set up laps whilst you were still playing. I think it was MK Dons, was it, at the time? Or somewhere? Where were you playing at the time when you set it up?
The idea of laps came about just after I left Oldham. So I left Oldham in the summer of 2013, and I couldn't get a club. I thought I had a really good season. Obviously I didn't, but I thought I had a good season. I thought I'd get a good deal somewhere at a better club than Oldham, and I wasn't getting offers from better clubs, and I was turning down offers from lesser clubs, thinking that I would get the contract I wanted. It went on and on and on throughout the summer, and then the season started, and I was still without a club. Obviously, I went back to the original clubs that did offer me deals and said, look, I'm willing to sign for you now. And they just shook their heads and said no. I was in limbo. It got to November, and I really thought that could have been the end of my football career out of nowhere. And I looked on the PFA website, and there were 400 other lads on the PFA website in exactly the same position as me. I were with a club last season and now without a club. And I had a bit of a different route into football anyway. I went to university before I became a professional footballer and completed a degree. And I'd like to think I was good with my finances as well. So I had a bit of a pot there as a safety net. I could see that pot was dwindling because I was still living the same lifestyle, thinking I was going to get a contract somewhere. So finances were dwindling, but not only that, I was worried that was the end of my football career. And even though I had a degree behind me, I had no clue what I wanted to do, not a clue. And not only that, I didn't think that there was an avenue potentially to help me decide what I wanted to do or upskill towards finding a new career at all, or even just links into companies that I could go and do work experience with or anything like that. I didn't think that there was anything like that. And I thought to myself, if I'm having issues, what the other 400 lads on the PFA website be thinking who, without being stereotypical, probably the majority of them hadn't had a degree behind them, and a lot of them probably just spend and not saved. Being very stereotypical there, sorry. And I went to Loughborough University, so I spoke to all my other friends that went to Loughborough in different sports, so cricket, rugby, football, athletics, about the transition from when they finish competing to the real world, and unanimously they came back and said it's a real worry for every sports person. There's not enough support or guidance or opportunity. So that was my light bulb moment, really, that I had to try and set something up. And I was fortunate enough to remain in football. I signed a 2-month deal with Leyton Orient, performed quite well, so they extended my contract, and I was a footballer up until just gone 2019. But I set laps up alongside playing football, and that was my light bulb moment, really. Why I thought I had to set it up, and why it's probably doing so well now, especially in, like you say, in the time we're in. Absolutely.
And Hannah, you've been through the LAPS program. You've been well supported. Just what's it like from an athlete's perspective?
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's only got better, really. I joined LAPS like when I was still thinking. I'd never heard of it. I literally just typed in like retired athletes careers and something, and like LAPS came up, so joined. And it wasn't until like you start to look through it and read about it, and you kind of see that we are employable. And it wasn't until I applied for the job and very fortunately got the job for member support manager. You really start, like when we host member meetups and you speak to different sectors, like property sectors, recruitment, things like that. They kind of explain how desired athletes are to work because of the mindset. We're so driven, like everything you want to do, you want to be the best at, you really want to work up. Some people are very money driven, so anything, and we're very coachable. Like that's the whole reason you got to where you are, that we're coachable. So it's great for me to now kind of use my experiences and LAPS to help other athletes. Like LAPS helped me massively, and hopefully that's the aim for me, to help other members and for us to boost our membership so that we can help as many people as possible, because it's a horrible feeling when you are in that position if you feel like you've got nowhere to go. And luckily we've got lots of members, and then we can all like bounce off each other and do that.
Yeah, it's a great community. And kind of preempting a question that someone's already asked, and you touched on it there about athletes transitioning into business and being coachable, which is a really valuable asset. What would you say is another skill or an asset that athletes have that are very applicable in business?
Is that to me or to Robbie?
To you first, Hannah, and then I'll ask Robbie the same.
It's just the standard kind of bullet points, isn't it? I mean, we're driven, we're generally very organised. I think we're quite stubborn in the sense that if we want to do it, we'll do it, and we'll work hard to do it. I think our work ethic is second to no one. It's very difficult to find that work ethic in people, but like with an athlete, if you want to be the best, you'll put in the work and you'll get there. And I think that's why a lot of companies have got sort of fast track routes for athletes, because you teach them something, they get it, they're on to the next bit, and they retain it well. So I think the work ethic from athletes is something that makes them very employable in any sector.
Absolutely. And Hannah, just go to Robbie. Hannah, could you just mute your mic whilst I go to Robbie? Because I think there's a little bit of background noise.
Yeah, of course.
Just bear with me. I'll come back to you. Don't worry. Robbie, I'll come to you. So you've probably seen it a lot since starting Laps. What would you say is probably the most transferable skill set from a professional footballer, professional athlete? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say sports people naturally have amazing traits that they don't realise they have. So communication, the ability to work in a team. But if I had to pick one, I would say that sports people tend to learn from failure really, really quickly. So the resilience of being able to deal with failure and turn it around in your favour. So if you lose or you have a bad game one week, or you don't do something quite right in whatever sport you do, you analyse it, you learn from it, and you put it right the next time. And you have to really quickly, because the next game's around the corner, the next training session is the next day, and you have to impress all the time. And I think that's really desirable by employers, that ability to, even though the likelihood is sports people haven't had much experience in the business world or in whatever job or career they move into, I can guarantee you they'll pick it up really, really quickly. And that's why our advice to any athlete really is just to say yes, because you'll be able to learn it really quickly, even if you have no clue what you're doing.
And whilst we're on the subject of that transition into business, someone's asked, is there a particular trade or industry that athletes look to go towards, or you've seen a real surge in since setting up Laps?
Do you know what we thought there would be? So we thought there'd be very kind of sales roles, recruitment. We thought that kind of competitiveness drive would be really suited to athletes. Also, we thought the sports element, so PE teachers. But that's been the most surprising thing, the breadth of careers that sports people have gone into. So when I first set Laps up, I thought, right, I need to search the country here and find what careers athletes have gone into. And we went round and did video interviews with, I think we've got over 100 athletes on our website now that we video interview for 10 minutes, asking them about their transition from sport into whatever career they're doing now, how they went about it, what they're using from their sports career now in their new career, and why it's helping them be successful. And the careers are anything from, we've got a policeman on there, a kitchen designer, an artist, a recruitment agent, recruitment consultant, a crocodile keeper at a zoo, a barber, the list, an accountant, a financial advisor. That it's so broad, the careers that people have gone into, and I think that's what makes it so special, that you can't just pigeonhole careers for these athletes. There's thousands of careers out there, and there's the message that we send to our athletes is there's bound to be one that you have an interest in, or you just ignites a little passion within you that you can then take and re-identify yourself really, and take what you've learned from sport into that.
Yeah, and before we take a couple of questions from the Q&A, we've obviously got a room full of businesses across the southeast of London here. I mean, how can businesses get involved with Laps? Are you looking for any support from businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'll probably put a link in the chat to the website. But yeah, absolutely, we're always looking for more opportunities for our members. So if you've got any type of opportunity for our members, even if it's just allowing one of our members to come in for work experience one day a week or one day a month, even, it just helps them. But obviously, if you've got job opportunities for our members and you're actively recruiting, then again, that's really great as well. That is how that is our model. That is how we generate our income through job advertisement. So yeah, the more the merrier. The more opportunities there are for our members, the better our offering is for them.
Good man. Yeah, we'll definitely share that, share the link and follow it up with lots of info about Laps. And yeah, it's a job board full of athletes that are looking at it. So we'll pose some questions and we'll come to you first, Hannah, on this. So Tim Rylett's asked, is is depression a big issue for sports stars who feel that they have peaked? How do you get past that and set new goals?
Yeah, I mean, mental health is huge in sport. Depression, anxiety, all of that is particularly high, especially with a lot of athletes that either are forced into retirement so they don't have control over it, or when you've passed your peak and then you start to get down. With it, it's far bigger now, mental health in sport. So a lot of people speak to sports psychologists. The big thing, obviously, at the moment is talk. So talking about it. But yeah, for me, what helped was setting other goals that was absolutely nothing to do with sport. So I spoke to other people about it. So I'm currently a personal trainer, along with working with laps, and do a bit of rugby coaching. But I couldn't continue to do sort of rugby coaching. Like, I find it really hard working with women because I relate so I can't do that. So I can coach a men's team because I couldn't play for that men's team. So in my head, that's fine. But a lot of athletes, they like to do, like Robbie said, they go a completely different angle. It's nothing to do with sport. So it's a completely different avenue. So they can work their way back up. And it's quite nice for athletes. And I always think it's really important to set new realistic goals for them, and they can be and fly up the ladder in a different company and a different career. Because it's nice, especially when you're a young athlete and you're setting up and you work your way up the ladder. That's great because you get closer and closer to what your dream is. But yeah, it's just kind of changing it. And that's the hard bit, is when you're like, I have to start at the bottom again and work my way up. And that's the challenging bit. But I think, especially with laps, it's great because like you wouldn't be starting at the bottom of the ladder if you start young enough. So if you're still competing, but you do a university course, or you do a course, or you do work experience, you're not at the bottom. So you've finished, this is the role you'll go into. And then you can it's a very seamless transition. So that's why the more you can do as you're competing or when you're young, the better your transition will be. Whereas if it's suddenly stopped and you don't have a control over that, and then you've got to move it, that's when depression and anxiety and the mental health kicks in. When athletes don't generally have control is when they suffer more. So having a control of the next step helps massively with mental health.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Hannah. I'm conscious of time, so I'll wrap up with one last question. We've covered mental health a little bit, so I'll go to you, Robbie. So Hannah, again.
Yeah.
On mute. You did touch on it about your education going through Loughborough before turning professional. Simon Gregg asks, do you think education is a barrier that a lot of athletes come up against, perhaps after their career?
Well, not only after, at the very beginning. I mean, I've not been at loggerheads, but I've tried to do as best I can to enforce change in the education system, especially for let's take young footballers for an example. They're very much taught at a young age that there'll be, let's say there's 20 players in a youth team. They'll all get sat down at the start of their youth team career and say, look, one of you are going to make it as a professional footballer. So if you want to be that one, you have to eat, sleep, drink football. Forget about everything else. And I think that's such a bad message. And in fact, studies have shown now that having other interests away from your sport can actually benefit your performance on the pitch. And in taking football again, I know that when you're in a youth team at a professional football club, you basically get pushed towards doing a BTEC in sports science, and that's it. So you could be very academic, but if you want to be a footballer, you can't do your A-levels and you can't go to university. And for me, that's just wrong. It's just wrong, especially when you see the stats of how many footballers make it and how many footballers don't. You know, it's the bigger proportion by a long way is those that don't. So I think we're doing a disservice to the players as people if we don't help them develop or help them be the best that they can be, both on the pitch and off it, and give them the very best chance in life, without distracting one. Because I don't think by helping them do A-levels rather than the BTEC, they'll suddenly be worse footballers. In fact, I think they'll be better if we encourage development as a person alongside as a sports person. So the barriers are there, and I hope that they'll be changing, especially after what we're going through now. I know when I first started as a professional in 2006, I moved to Coventry in 2007, and I got nicknamed the student because I was the only one who had got any kind of further education in the whole squad. But when I signed for Exeter in 2017, the Telegraph came and did a piece on us because there were 11 of our 20-man squad that had either completed a degree or currently studying one. And I think that shows the change in time for a 10-year period, a change in mindset, and I hope it will continue along that same path.
Great. Well, Robbie, Hannah, thank you very much for your time. Thanks so much for joining us. Very refreshing to hear the work that you guys are doing, and big congrats, Robbie, for setting up Laps, and Hannah for being involved as well. And we're supporting you guys as much as we can, and we'll make sure that everyone gets the details about what we're doing, and we'll do a write-up about today. Do stick around if you're able to. But thanks again for your time. I'll let you. I'll take you off the stage now. But thanks very much, guys. Thanks, Robbie. Thanks, Hannah.